Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of Dark Powerrr, where we talk about everything that happens on AEW Dark Elevation and NWA Powerrr. Not too much to write home about this week, but there were some things that stood out. So let's get straight into it, guys. All right, guys, welcome back. After that awesome intro, thanks again to Chris G for that great intro video. This is a great time to remind you guys, hit that like button, comment, share, subscribe. If you have not already, it allows us to keep doing the wonderful things that we do for you guys, such as that great intro video. Now, this week on Elevation, there wasn't really that much. There were a couple matches, a lot of backstage promos and interviews that were really good. Get a chance, like those are actually things to check out more than the matches themselves. Coming out of the big Arthur Ashe show, they highlighted a lot of what the guys and gals were feeling from the show, particularly Dr. Baker and Brian, and just good moments there. That's something I hope they do continue with Elevation, but I want them to try to focus more on the younger talent, which is hard because sometimes those younger talent aren't on Dynamite. But at the same time, if the point of Elevation is to raise up the younger talent, the people who aren't getting as exposed to the business in general as others, then we but at the same time, I understand why this was this particular focus, because that Arthur Ashe show was just so damn important. So I like what they did. I want to see them continue it, but with a focus on what Elevation is supposed to be about, especially because we haven't had one of those Elevation showcases with Paul Wight in some time. And that was actually something that was really nice when it came to Elevation and what they were doing. But let's turn towards Dark, because Dark did have some things match-wise that stood out to me. And the first was Ricky Starks' match against Darius Lockhart. This match was really good for something. I didn't have too many expectations for this match, but I got to say they did a really, really good job in this one, particularly because a lot of times with the matches on Dark or on Elevation, excuse me, you don't always think that the AEW talent is in danger of losing the match. That's something that's hard to do. It's hard to pull off. And when they are able to do that during the match, it's really good. And especially when you have a match that's going longer and you have the time to tell that story, it's even better. So kudos to Darius Lockhart. Kudos for Ricky Starks for this match. Really well done. The finish was, of course, the spear from Ricky Starks, which he is now kind of using more than the Rochambeau. And I said that a while ago, the Rochambeau is a great move, but hitting it on people who are larger than Starks is difficult. Just the nature of getting people up for that Rochambeau, let alone holding them there for the second or two before you drop them down. So, yeah, I like to see that spear, nice power move from him. It can be used to chop down people much larger than him, Brian Cage. So we'll see what happens as he continues to develop that spear and use it more and more, as opposed to the Rochambeau. Good win for Starks. And I want to see what they do with that FTW championship. I'd like to see if it is a title that gets used a lot more on Dark. That would be something that'd be really cool. Dark and Elevation. But something else that I liked from Dark was the main event, which sees QT Marshall and Aaron Solo teaming up, the Factory teaming up against Matt Sydal and Dante Martin. This was a highly athletic match, a lot of nice back and forth, and I was trying to figure out who is going to be the first person or first team or first whatever spot that used that little dais that's part of, that you see there, that's part of the Dark platform, the dark stage. I was trying to figure out who it would be. And of course, I should have known it would be one of the high flyers. Of course, I should have thought maybe it'd be Dante Martin, who just has this incredible, uncanny ability to be able to bounce all over the ring, jump off of things that he should not be able to jump off of. See him do aerial moves off of the middle rope with just 1 foot. So, of course, and Matt Sydal, a great aerialist. So, of course, we're going to be able to see them do something like that. That was one of the first things I thought when I first saw that dark stage, when they showed us the Universal stuff, the Universal, Dark Universal. I don't know what exactly they're calling it. But I got to say, one other thing was that if you get a chance to check out the Ricky Starks, Darius Lockhart match, it was really funny just because of the commentary that Taz and Excalibur are having. The exchanges between the two of them, they seem like they're having a really fun time. But also, I think you can tell some of the matches are starting to wear on them just because of the nature of taping, how many episodes that they taped probably in the span of a couple days. But let's turn, guys, towards NWA Powerrr. This was a little bit of a jumbled mess, but it wasn't too bad. Not as bad as we've had in previous weeks. So we start off with a Strictly Business interview. This is Strictly Business without Nick Aldis. It's just Latimer, Camille, and Adonis. Now, we're trying to figure out why Kyle Davis is at the commentary desk and at the interview desk instead of Tim Storm. And Tim's, trying to ask the tough questions to Strictly Business. And Latimer decides that this is a great time to get in Tim Storm's face and kind of challenge him and be a dick to him. Mama Storm's boy don't take any of that. He immediately takes off the jacket, gets into the ring, and is saying, we can do this right now if you want to. So Strictly Business circles the ring. I did like the fact that when they circled the ring to attack Tim Storm, Camille got on the ring too. Remember, when they kind of had the turn, this is a year, actually 2 years ago now, I think. But when they kind of showcased Camille and the real turn of Strictly Business, it involved Camille spearing Tim Storm. So the fact that Camille doesn't have an issue getting up on the apron is a great sign because she's supposed to. Camille, her character and, the way she portrays herself is somebody who doesn't take shit from anybody. So if she already considers herself above the women's division, why wouldn't she feel as though there's no issue with mixing it up with some of the guys? And that's not to say, the men's division is stronger than the women's division or anything like that. But for Camille, she needs new challenges in her mind. What real challenge is there in somebody like Melina? But we'll be getting to that in a little bit. Nick Aldis comes out, and at first you think that Aldis is going to help Strictly Business attack Tim Storm, but he gets everybody to settle down and calls off the dogs, so to speak, in an interesting turn. I think I said a couple weeks ago that we are starting to see the turn of Nick Aldis, turning him face. It's a really nice move. And I wonder if we're going to get the Strictly Business turning on Nick Aldis, because to turn Nick Aldis face is one thing, and that's fine. It's difficult to do considering he's been a heel for, like 4 years. But to turn 4 people face at the same time is a little difficult. It's a tricky thing to do. That's why when AEW did it with the Inner Circle turning face, it needed a new heel group. And that's how we, the Pinnacle, the Inner Circle turning face only makes sense because the Pinnacle arrived to replace them as a heel group. And when you're turning all those people face, they need to have a reason for turning face, right? So it made sense and it worked. Here, turning all this works, but will the rest of Strictly Business follow suit? That's what we're going to have to pay attention to. That's the story here, particularly because let's not forget, and we're going back to Camille yet again. The way she came into the NWA, the way she came into wrestling was being his bodyguard, being his valet, his insurance policy. If now she is part of a group that turns on Aldis, or does not turn face, and instead abandons Aldis. It's cementing even more the growth of Camille as no longer being that voiceless insurance policy, but having her own agenda, having her own mind, having her own way of doing things. So that'll be something to really pay attention to, particularly because she is a kind of interesting focal point or leverage point, because not only does she have a business relationship with Nick, she has a personal relationship with Latimer. So if Latimer is the one that is pushing strictly business to turn on Nick, how does that play into her personal relationship with Latimer and her business relationship with Aldis? It's an interesting story, and I want to see how exactly they're going to write this story and tell us this tale, particularly because we can always have some kind of mixed tag match between Latimer, Camille versus Aldis and Mickie James. But speaking of the Women's Championship, let's talk about the next segment, which is where Melina has a little bit of an interview. I say a little bit because she's talking about how she doesn't respect Camille for not behaving the way she believes a champion should. And then, of course, Chelsea Green comes out. They do the whole hot mess thing. Nothing too crazy there. It's just a little weird seeing Chelsea Green do hot mess stuff in NWA, but not in Ring of Honor at the same time. But that's the nature of taping and the nature of what one promotion will actually ask you to do versus another. We have a tag team match next where Hawks Aerie takes on Colby Carino and JTG. The pairing of JTG and Carino is a little weird because JTG is definitely a face, whereas Carino is absolutely an asshole of a heel. But I will say that commentary did point that out, and they brought that up, which is good because it's a weird pairing. And we don't have to suffer through that pairing for that much longer because Hawks Aerie does pick up the win. It was a pretty good tag match, nothing too crazy, which is something that I say a lot with NWA. But it was a good tag match, a solid match for what it was supposed to be. And it got the job done, which is the most important thing of building up more competition for our NWA tag team champions, the La Rebellion, who are no longer here or in the building. Anyway, after this, we have a promo from Scion, who, basically says, I know who you are, Tyrus. You don't really remember me or know me, but because I'm wearing a mask and all that, but I know who you are, and I'm going to take that TV title. Whatever. Robert Anthony does a pretty decent promo. After this, there's a Team Tyrus promo in response. Jordan Clearwater, always a little kind of weird with the 111% thing now that he's doing. But overall, also gets the job done. They have a tendency, especially Austin Idol, to talk a little bit too much longer than needs to be. And again, even though the job is to get Tyrus over, Idol still can't help himself of getting himself over or try to get himself over at the end of the segment. It was just a little weird. Next, we have Genocide taking on Allison Kay. This match was kind of a foregone conclusion because we know that we're going to get the tag titles, the women's tag titles, being defended by Allison Kay and Marty Bell versus Genocide and Paola. But they wanted to put us through this whole rigmarole of, we're going to have a singles match between Paola and Marty Bell and then Genocide and Allison Kay. And if either Paola or Genocide win their match, then the team gets a title shot. And then Paola loses. Well, of course she's going to lose because you're trying to just be like, will Genocide beat Allison Kay? Of course she's going to, because how else are we going to have a tag title match? We got to have a tag title match. I will say that the match finish was a little screwy because it involves Lady Frost coming out, and there really was no explanation as to why Lady Frost came out and made some kind of distraction, particularly because Paola and Taryn Terrell were not there at ringside. And after the match, Taryn Terrell does show up, so why have Lady Frost run out there at all? Finally, we have our main event. Now, this is kind of an interesting main event. It's a triple threat tag team match. We have the Pope teaming up with our world's heavyweight champion, Trevor Murdoch, facing the End, facing Jeremiah Plunkett and Crimson. Now, there are a lot of things that they're trying to get done in this match. And I feel like it could have been a lot simpler. This is what I meant earlier where I said it was a little bit of a jumbled mess, but it still worked. And I'll explain. So what happens during the course of this match is, actually, it's this moment right here. Murdoch's going to get Plunkett down. He's going to climb up to do his crossbody. And when he comes off the top rope, he's going to bang up his knee a little bit. And by a little bit, I mean, at first, I thought he had a legitimate injury. Now, it's possible he does have a legitimate injury. I've been trying to, read up about it, but there was nothing else. There was nothing that I could find that said he did have a legitimate injury or it was a work. There's really actually no news about it, which is incredible considering you would think NWA would focus on that on their Twitter and talk about whether or not the world's champion was injured. But I digress. We have this match, and Murdoch's going to have to tag out to Pope and basically sit out the rest of the match. Pope's going to do the heavy lifting himself. Pope is going to win this match. And the end don't really factor into the match that much. The tag match is okay. Pope's doing what Pope does best and gets the job done. Now, after the match, Jack Stane is going to come out with the ref and say that he wants to cash in his title opportunity right then and there, which makes sense. It's kind of like a Money in the Bank, so to speak, but like 8 people have it. All right. He's going to get cold clocked by Crimson, Jack Stane, those issues. He's going to get cold clocked by Crimson, and one punch is all that it takes to knock him out. Ignoring that for the moment, I understand what they were trying to do. They were trying to create a situation where Jack Stane attempts to cash in, Crimson knocks him out. Fine. One, the actual knockout could have been better, should have been better. But 2, they didn't need this to be a triple threat match because the end were barely involved. All you needed to make sure was that on one side of the ring, you had Trevor Murdoch, who is either doing a work or a shoot of an injury. And on the other side, you have Crimson, who needs to be there in order to knock out Jack Stane. So it got a little bit more complicated than it needed to be, especially because if you are saying, okay, well, at least it's going to be a good match, the end don't really factor into the match pretty much that at all. So, all right, cool. I will say that after the match, or after Crimson knocks out Jack Stane, they do a very good job of Trevor Murdoch selling the injury. So again, I couldn't really tell whether or not it was real or not, and I really hope that it isn't, because that would be horrible for Trevor Murdoch, who has tried and fought and clawed so hard to get to that World's Championship. Before I go, I will say that they were going to have a match between Jedias and James Storm that ends in a no contest when neither man can listen to the referee. Nothing too important. It just keeps that little storyline going. And I don't know where they're going with this. Some kind of weird grudge match between Jedias and James Storm, who are face and heel. But then Jedias has that national title shot in his back pocket against Adonis, who is a heel. I don't know. Like, the only thing I could think of, and I thought about this during that opening segment, was if Strictly Business turns on Nick Aldis, and during the course of the feud, Nick Aldis takes the North American title from Adonis, and then Jedias cashes in his North American title shot against Nick Aldis. Now we have face heel, back again, that alignment. We'll have to see how all of that shakes out. But guys, that'll be for another time, another date here on Dark Powerrr. Thank you guys for tuning in once again. We appreciate it. We appreciate all of you guys each and every week supporting us and supporting the channel here at True Heel Heat. Remember to hit that like button, comment, share, subscribe, and you can always catch me again on Fusion of Honor with my tag team partner, Ness, three-time baby-making champ, as we break down everything that happens in MLW Fusion and Ring of Honor. So until next time, guys, remember, take care of yourselves, take care of each other,